For all of us concerned about climate today and about the maintenance of cultural diversity, it's absolutely essential that we start looking at economic policies that all around the world are encouraging every business to use more energy, more natural resources, contributing to more mining, more pollution, and to use fewer and fewer people in whatever activity we're doing, whether it's in engineering, in education, in medicine, in every field. Businesses are being pushed to use more of the natural world and to employ fewer people. And this is because the system that was set in motion a long time ago, using the principle of comparative advantage, always encouraging specialization for export. So encouraging that on the land, countries were creating bigger and bigger monocultures in agriculture, in forestry, in fisheries, all of it leading into a global trading system where goods were traveling further and further. So the distance between production and consumption was growing. These distances and this use of limited resources has escalated dramatically in the last era of globalization, starting roughly in the mid-80s. If we look honestly at all the statistics to do with human well-being, ecosystem health, democracy, civic participation, every indicator we will choose, we will find that as the global economy has grown more and more, and that means global corporations have accumulated more wealth, and it's been through a path of mega mergers. So in this mega merging system, there are fewer and fewer survivors. There are fewer and fewer CEOs. Stepping back to look at that big picture is today essential. And it's essential that we do so without blame. This is not about blaming big corporations. It's not about blaming the consumers for being too interested in their consumer goods. It's about really understanding that we're enmeshed in a system that has not been studied. It's not been studied from a global perspective. Once you do so, you see there is no individual entity to blame. There are no individual countries. There are no individual corporations. Without a doubt, the US government has been pushing this path of globalization more actively than most others. But again, when we step back, we will see that in an unwitting, unconscious way, most people have either gone along with this or supported it. Most people who have been afraid of their children being left behind, who wanted a good education for their children, have actually been going along with changes in schooling that support this resource intensive, very polluting, very inefficient economy. The changes in education, particularly in these years since the mid-80s, have been conforming to supporting these policies. Again, more pollution, more resource use, fewer people employed, and certainly fewer people healthy, happy, employed in meaningful work. Today, the youth from Korea to America to countries like Bhutan and Ladakh, where I've worked for many years, the youth are facing a situation where the competition is more and more intense, and their prospects of having decent work and an affordable roof over their head are disappearing as we speak. So I really hope that at this UNESCO conference, there will be a willingness to step back to look at the big picture. We could encourage an immediate shift in the use of taxes, subsidies, and regulations to start moving the economy towards supporting more job-rich ways of production. The immediate emergency is what's happening to people who work directly on the land or directly on the seas and in the forest. The real economy is the living earth. It is infinitely diverse and it needs more localized knowledge systems in order to maintain and help that diversity to thrive. So we could shift immediately to support those people who are still engaged in that primary economic production to be supported in the smaller scale, more diversified modes of production. We could raise the status of that work to spell out that this is the work of healing the planet. This is the work of generating the real economic needs. We need to be also using those mechanisms, taxes, subsidies, and regulations, to ensure that we move away from what now is an automatic pilot of interlinked blindness, ever more specialized education linked to ever higher technology, ever more energy intensive, ultimately a fear-based race to Mars to be the first to grab those minerals, the deepest seabed to mine for minerals, in order to ensure that the other country is not on top. We have got to participate in this crazy, fear-mongering, war-based race for resources. If we encourage instead that the UN and UNESCO can be a starting point, plays the role of starting a conversation among countries of how we can collaborate to get out of this madness, this short-term vision, and this ultimate destruction of the resources of the world, and therefore the destruction of human life. We know that we are inextricably connected to the web of life. We know that what we do to the soil, we do to ourselves. And that knowledge is mounting day by day. This is why we have more and more discussion about learning from indigenous cultures. And my book, Ancient Futures, laid out a roadmap of what I learned from indigenous culture, not just about some specific rituals or some specific ways of doing things, but about the general principle of more extended family and community fabrics where people were interdependent in their local bioregion, the knowledge systems that allowed them to pay attention to that infinite diversity, that constant change in the living world, that allowed them to respond to life in a forever humble way, always open to the contradictions, to the change. As we became forcefully removed from the land through enclosures, through slavery, we started as essentially to move away from evolution. We moved away from that dialogue with the rest of creation, with Mother Gaia, and we lost our way. We now must find our way back. And what is wonderful for me in my work, in having promoted this path of localization instead of globalization, is that I am bearing witness to a cultural turning worldwide, a cultural turning from the bottom up, where more and more people are showing their deep desire to reconnect to the living world, their deep desire to once again be able to respect their own languages, their own knowledge systems, not to live in fear of conforming to an artificial media created consumer culture where people have images foisted on them of a success story of ever greater consumption, always an urban consumer culture. It's a teenage boy culture, and it is dying in the hearts and minds of the people of the world. They are losing respect for that. It is now high time that governments respond to that clear desire on the part of people to be able to rebuild their deep connections to nature, to rebuild the fabric of community, and to regain faith in the democratic process, to be able to have a voice in policy choices as we go forward. Do we really want to pursue a path of ever more energy and resource consumption on a crowded planet? Or do we want to recognize that we have an overabundant renewable resource, which is humanity? We need more eyes, we need more hands per acre. We need more eyes and hands in all the industries and all the work that we care about. Caring for the ill, caring for the aged, for the children, the process of care and compassion that can allow us to lead happy, fulfilling lives. This is what we call the economics of happiness. And it's the economics that we must employ as soon as possible to restore and rebuild our cultural heritage and to reduce the emissions that are threatening all life on Earth.